Hello everyone, Marky Billson here, reporting live from Neyland Stadium in Knoxville, Tennessee, where the Tennessee Volunteers have dropped a double overtime game to the Brigham Young Cougars by the score of 29-22, thus dropping the Volunteers to 0-2 for the first time since 1988, when they started 0-6 before winning their last 5 games, finishing 5-6. The Tennessee Volunteers of 2019 almost assuredly now will not win 5 games. It is becoming increasingly difficult to try to figure out how that will happen. And quite frankly, 0-12 is on the table. Now, that would require a loss to Chattanooga, who had lost by 3 touchdowns to a good Jacksonville State team, but still an FCS team. Of course, so is Chattanooga, but I will throw this out to you. Nick Tiano is considered to be, by many, a top prospect from the Southern Conference to make the NFL. If you had to bet right now, who would you say is more likely to make the NFL? Nick Tiano, 6'5", 240 pounds, coming out of Chattanooga, or Jared Guarantano? Guarantano today made a lot of weird decisions. There were many times he had time. In fact, he was only sacked once, but instead decided not to try to advance the ball downfield, but rather throw a swing pass, even when he had all the time in the world. There was some question, I thought, earlier this year, would Guarantano, who is listed as a dual-threat quarterback coming into the season, would he be more of a drop-back passer, or would he be that dual threat? Even here, when he had the time, he was being the drop-back passer, but he wasn't throwing downfield. He was throwing swing passes. Right now, it was decision-making, and not that he wasn't solely to blame. Certainly, Juwan Jennings, late in the first half, dropping a touchdown pass didn't help matters out any for Tennessee. A catch there, and Tennessee probably wins this game in regulation. But still, so many ways where Tennessee could have won, but they did not. Going for it 3 times on 4th down. The first time it worked, a tip pass meant a touchdown on 4th down early on. Still, though, going for it 3 times on 4th down when field goals could have been kicked, it does seem a little bit like desperation times for Jeremy Pruitt. Of course, you're going to have a lot of knee-jerk reaction. Fire the coach, even though he's only into his 14th game. Just completed as Tennessee coach. That is too early, certainly. But here's a big thing, and I've mentioned this many times before. I refuse to believe that Phil Fulmer will fire his hand-picked head coach. You've got some people saying, oh, maybe he should be the interim. I can't see that happening. For one thing, if it did, he would almost have to assuredly become the coach full-time from there, because you're never going to get, as long as he stays as the athletic director, a coach of any worth who would come into Tennessee and have such a coach look over his shoulder. You gave this other guy, who was the defensive coordinator at Alabama, which is not a bad position, 14 whole games to make it. And then you replaced him, and we always knew that you didn't want to be relieved of your duties at Tennessee either. What chance do I have if I don't turn it around quick? Question, though, remains, will Tennessee ever turn it around? This is no longer an elite program, and it's becoming more and more to have the appearance of, say, an Ole Miss, a Minnesota, a Pitt, a Yale. Okay, Yale is a bit much, but a past great team that really is not considered to be elite anymore. 12 years since the last division title, it certainly isn't happening now, and 21 since the last conference title, and frankly, of the Power 5 conferences, I've said it many times, 43 teams, or a majority of the teams in Power 5 conferences, have won a conference title since Tennessee last won the SEC back in 1998. So time's not looking good for the Tennessee Volunteers. Got to give a lot of credit to Brigham Young. I did think their young sophomore quarterback, Zach Wilson, showed a lot in coming back today. In fact, if you didn't know, with 1:01 left, he got the ball at his own 16, holding penalty, incomplete pass. Now he's down to his own 8. It becomes schoolyard time. In post-game comments, he said, we weren't drawing up plays, we were just trying to go at that point. No timeouts left. He scrambles for 12 yards, and then on 3rd down, he hits Micah Simon, a player who wasn't even assured of a starting position today, with a 64-yard pass that put Brigham Young down by 3 points at the time, in field goal range with 7 seconds left. The spike, the kick from 33 with 5 seconds left, we're going into OT. Kyson Williams, who actually had a pretty good game for South Carolina here 2 years ago before transferring to BYU this year. Ironically, both of those games that Williams played in were games that he won and that went down to the final play. But just to give you an example, here is a team not really in the Power 5, and yet in double overtime, it is Williams manhandling his way into the end zone, a 5-yard run through the box in which it's almost like 1890s football. He refuses to go down, he's got a bunch of blockers, he won't fall, and finally he's called for the touchdown, and BYU wins 29-26 to even their record at 1-1 following a 16-point loss to Utah in the opening game. Tennessee, meanwhile, they fall after losing to BYU. Two teams, not Power 5 conference teams, Georgia State and BYU, and we can talk all we want to about those. Futures look bright for those teams. Does the future look bright for BYU? I would say so with Zach Wilson as a quarterback, but long term, who knows? Georgia State, I do think, will improve over a course of time. I think that they could be another Appalachian State, but what does that mean? They're not going in the Power 5. They're not getting picked up by the SEC. They could be a good team in, I don't know, the American or Conference USA, let's say, in 10 years. Or maybe the Sun Belt becomes a powerful football conference. And I think Georgia State, with their facilities and enrollment, could be very good. But will it be Central Florida good? That would be the goal, not necessarily Alabama or Clemson good. It's one thing to lose to Alabama. It's another thing to lose to a Sun Belt Conference team when you are in the SEC. So those are some of the things to look at right now. I do want to mention one thing before I leave. I know this week a lot of people were talking about Jordan Murphy going to the transfer portal, and he was tweeting out jokes about Tennessee losing to Georgia State in the opening game of the season. Well, there were some people that says, you can't keep a guy like that around the team and all this. Don't you think he had made the decision to transfer before he was sending out tweets making fun of Tennessee's loss to the Panthers? Think about that for a second. Of course he did. And he had some people thinking that it was some sort of discipline that he would be sent off. That's ridiculous. I mean, it's just totally looking through the scene with orange-colored glasses. Unfortunately, I think the demise of the Tennessee Volunteers has come in large part because people do look through orange-colored glasses and aren't willing to look at the changes in college football that have occurred, and they still want to believe it's 1998. There have been a lot of changes that have occurred. Everybody's in the black. The advantages that Tennessee once had may actually be disadvantages now. And we're seeing it with an 0-2 start. And unless an FCS victory against Chattanooga occurs, 0-12 could be on the table. I don't think that will happen because an FBS team losing to the FCS doesn't happen all that often. But as I said, I think Chattanooga will have the advantage at quarterback, and something along the lines of 2-10. No victories in the SEC for the second time in 3 years. These things are now on the table. One bright spot for the Tennessee Volunteers, the emergence of freshman running back Eric Gray. He ran for 79 yards today. Ty Chandler had 160 on 26 carries, including a 53-yard carry that nobody saw coming. That resulted in a Tennessee field goal at the end of the first half that gave the Vols a 13-3 lead at the half. But Jared Guarantano threw a pick in the opening series of the third quarter, and BYU was in control in large part from there on out. So the adjustments at halftime, BYU saying that they kept their roster fresh, a lot of substitutions and such. Not that Tennessee didn't, but it certainly worked better for BYU today. When does it all end for Tennessee? Who knows? Marky Billson talking to you. See you next time.